Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Angela, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're all good. We're all good. We're really thrilled that we're getting to have a chat with you today. Angela, we always like to start the conversations off by just kind of going back to the more formative years and just asking how you got into mixed martial arts.
So it's kind of a lame story. I started training with my husband. We just gotten married and we were playing video games, eating pizza every day. We both had jobs where we were just sitting down all day. Like I was working in an animation studio, and he was working at an art gallery. So we are just kind of sitting on our ass all day. And then eventually I was like, yeah, I want to learn how to defend myself. I think it would be a fun way to get it back in shape. And my husband was down too. And we went to our first Muay Thai class and just fell in love with it. Like the first time I threw an elbow on the pads, I was just like, oh my God, I am so powerful. And I was like super skinny back then. Like now I have like little muscles or whatever. But back then I was rake thin, like my arms were really skinny, like Angelina Jolie's. And when I started throwing punches and kicks at things, I just felt really powerful all of a sudden, like first time in my life. So that was the thing that sparked the interest. And at that point, I had no interest in fighting other people. I just liked the fact that I was getting stronger and getting in shape, and I look good in a bikini, but then eventually my coach asked me if I wanted to fight. And I was like, well, if you think I'm good enough. And he's like, well, we'll see, so we'll see. You either get messed up or, you do great. And luckily I did really well. I did this tournament where you go and you have a bunch of fights in one day, and I ended up winning 2 fights that night. And from then on, I just kept fighting. I kept having Muay Thai fights and kept winning, and I got a few knockouts. And around the time that I was, I guess, wondering what the next step was going to be, that's when the UFC announced that they were bringing in strawweights, which was like 5 pounds heavier than what I was fighting at. And they were like, okay, we're going to bring in the 115-pound weight class, and we're going to do it through a season of tough. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll go try out and make some connections and show face, and they'll see me for later after I have a few more fights. And then I ended up getting on the show. So that's kind of how my career started in MMA.
I mean, I've got so many questions on that alone.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, before we get on to getting into tough, those first Muay Thai fights, I mean, you've now walked out into some of the biggest arenas in the world to fight at the highest level. And I can't imagine, and I'm sure we'll get around to asking you about the pressure that comes with that. But how was you with them early Muay Thai fights, knowing that this wasn't pads, this wasn't sparring with your friends, this was someone that was, theoretically trying to take your head off, and you was meant to be doing the same. Had you ever, growing up, was you comfortable with confrontation, or was it something that was quite alien to you?
I hated confrontation. I still do. Like if there's a way for me to ease a situation, then that's the path that I take. So I never liked fighting or arguments or anything like that. And I don't know. I feel like that's one of the reasons why training to become a fighter was so fun for me, because it was just something totally different from anything that I actually wanted to do in real life. So yeah, it was definitely interesting going in there and just being in a scrap and actually like trying to take the other person's head off, because when you're in there, you're just doing all or nothing. Like there's no holding back, there's no going easy on the other person, because they're trying to murder you. So if they could murder you in the fight, they would. Luckily there's referees there to make sure that it doesn't go that far. But that's what you have to do to win. So one thing that my coach said to me before my first fight that really prepared me was that, you have great technique, but when you get in there, all the technique's gonna go out the window. The person with the best cardio is gonna win the fight because this is your first fight. Like, you both suck. Like, basically that's what he was telling me. Like, you both suck at this point of your careers. So just be the more in shape person and you'll win the fight. So I was running, I was sprinting as much as I could. I would go as hard as I could on the heavy bag, as hard as I could on pad work. And that prepared me well. So the fight looks, when I look at the fight now, I'm like, oh my God, like it looks like it's going half speed. We're both just like lactic acid and our muscles just going, ah. But at the time I was really proud of myself because I was like, yeah, I beat her ass. And every fight that you have, you get better, you keep improving. And even like my first UFC fights, I look back at like the ones that I won, and I'm like, oh, like I could have finished her there. I shouldn't have gotten taken down there and stuff like that. So it's funny looking back at how I approached fighting and looking back at like how I actually looked compared to what I thought I looked like.
Yeah.
At the time, like I thought I looked really cool, but yeah, fighting is just like such an odd thing to do, especially when it's planned out. Like if a fight pops off in the middle of a bar, then that's a lot more natural than saying, hey, I'm gonna go to this place and fight you in 3 weeks, and then you're just sitting there 3 weeks for 3 weeks like, oh God. um
It was
so yeah,
bad enough at school when someone said, I'm going to meet you outside in like 2 hours
exactly.
or something. That was nerve-wracking enough for me. I always ran the other way. So I'm not getting involved in this.
There you go. There you go. So that's like an experience everyone knows. Like, just multiply that by weeks.
Yeah.
Like that 30 minutes waiting for the bell to ring is so hard. It feels so long, and that's kind of how waiting for a fight feels like. But yeah, it was fun. Like I enjoyed it. My first fight, I enjoyed it, and I kept doing it.
I'm still interested in the mindset change between like what you're saying. You're working in an animation studio, your husband's working in an art gallery.
Yeah.
Flash forward a few years and you're a professional fighter. I mean, I imagine you've got a very eclectic group of friends because like you must have like if you had a barbecue, have you got like one group of people that are in like berets and pashminas and the other guys are like really jacked in like tank tops and stuff like how does that even work? How it just seems like such a huge shift.
Yeah, it was a stupid huge shift. And it was fun when I was living in New York because then all my art friends were there and my Muay Thai friends. But when I moved to California, now it's mostly just MMA people that I hang out with. So I lost touch with my roots, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just funny. Like one reason I do like social media is because I can stay in touch with all those people that I knew in my past lives, I like to call it. So like people who knew me in high school, where I was like super quiet and like just that shy girl that never talked to anyone. And then like people in art school who knew me is like kind of the same deal, but like they're like, oh yeah, she went and did animation. She had that cool project that we saw in their senior show. And then people who knew me from Muay Thai, and now people who know me from MMA, because like the Muay Thai and the MMA community is kind of different too. Like Muay Thai, they're a little more how you say it, just kind of just full of themselves. they think they're like, I don't know, just like the creme de la creme of martial arts. Muay Thai people do. And then you have the MMA fighters who are a little more down to earth, a little more like brutish, but yeah, everyone kind of comes from these different areas like wrestling and MMA and boxing. They all come together, and then you get this good mix of people. But yeah, if you ever join a gym, just know you're not just gonna be surrounded by jocks. Like you join a martial arts gym, it's gonna be mostly nerds, really. Like like
unless
a lot
it's
of
Muay Thai and
nerds.
then they're all gonna be snobs or something.
Yeah, nerd snobs. There's a little bit of both.
With that in mind, Angela, the multitude of disciplines that you just mentioned there, you said that, you saw that there was, trials or auditions. I don't know what they refer to it as, to get into tough.
Mhm.
And obviously you're competing at a high level of Muay Thai there, and you think, right, I want to have a bit of this. This looks good. Had you done BJJ? Had you wrestled? Had you done anything other than Muay Thai when you sort of went for this tough gig?
Yeah, but not nearly enough. Like,
Okay.
I felt a lot more confident in my takedown defense and my BJJ skills before I fought someone who's who was also one of I guess like a lot of girls in the gym who become the best chick in the gym. If you don't have other girls there who are at your level, then you just become kind of cocky
Yeah.
and you think that you can beat everyone. Like you're beating up the guys, you're beating up any girl who comes through, and then you think, oh well, if I fight a girl, like it'll definitely be easier than beating up the guys. But you're fighting a girl like that from different parts of the world. There was a little bit of humbling after my first couple of fights, my first couple of MMA fights, where I just realized, okay, I do have a lot to work on, and I've only I've only hit the tip of the iceberg when it comes to even striking. Like I thought I knew everything there was about striking, but there was a lot that I had to learn about just MMA striking. The fact that the gloves are smaller, so if you block like this, you're still gonna get punched, because the
Yeah.
glove will like go right through the guard. Moving your footwork has to be a little different, so you're not getting taken down every 2 seconds. And then obviously with like wrestling and BJJ, there's a wealth of things that I didn't know yet. So I had been training a little bit with those things, and before I went to Tough, I did a really in depth, um, just I guess MMA wrestling training with a coach in North Carolina before I went on Tough. So I had the basics, and I kind of knew what I had to do when it came to defending and going for my own takedowns. But it's like anything, you start to scratch the surface, but there's so much more that you have to learn. So even if you show good potential, it might not mean that I can go into a wrestling match with like Carlos Esparza and win. So like that was kind of like what I learned on Tough, is that okay, you got a lot to learn, and you do have potential. And I was doing well against my teammates on the show, but it's something that you don't really see as a fan. But I was hanging with my teammates. I was like beating them in certain positions and beating them on the mats as well as like in the striking department. So I knew, even though I lost that first fight on Tough, I knew that my potential was there, and I'm hanging with people who have been fighting for years longer than me. So just keep working, keep improving, and I'll be there eventually.
So the fact that you did unfortunately lose your first fight against Carla Esparza, who went on to
Yeah.
win the whole thing. So yeah, it wasn't too bad in hindsight. But the fact
Yeah.
that that happened, and then you were then, I suppose, you didn't have a fight to necessarily look forward to. You were just part of the team. Was that in the end a positive experience because you were able to kind of treat it as a learning experience rather than a competition?
Yeah, I was still technically I was still 1-0 in MMA, so I wasn't too upset about it. And I, for the first time, I had been training with UFC fighters, with Invicta fighters, with people who I was kind of fangirling over.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
training with them now, so it was really cool. And for the first time, I was training with women who were as skilled or better than me. And it's a huge difference. Like when you're training with a guy, like it's easy to make excuses when you're not doing well. Like, oh, he's stronger than me, or he's like muscling through everything, or if that was a chick, that move would have worked. But if you do something to a girl who's in your weight class, who you could potentially fight, and it doesn't work, you're like, okay, it's not because she's stronger or bigger or faster, it's because I'm not doing the technique right. So it's a really good way to check yourself, but it's also a good way to see what actually does work. So when I'm like suddenly like taking people down and stuff, when it was really hard to take down the guys at my other gym where they're all really good wrestlers, then I'm like, oh, okay, so the stuff that I was doing is working. I just have to keep getting those reps in with girls who are good that are going to challenge me. And I think that's one thing that's led to a lot of great female fights is the fact that these girls are suddenly like finding each other and training together. Like you have like the girls at Top Team, you have a lot of girls in Colorado who are all training together too. And then we have a big group out here in San Diego, and like guys, they don't understand how lucky they have it. Like it's such a big difference to train with a bunch of girls who are good. And I like to use the example of like imagine a flyweight fighter only having like light heavyweights to train with. Like they're never gonna get the right looks.
Yeah.
They're never gonna understand what they're good at and what they're bad at. And then you end up kind of going into the fight blind. And with being able to train with a lot of women, I feel like it's really allowed me to develop a lot faster than I would have if I was just training with guys the entire time.
One of the things that you... Oh, sorry, go on, Stu, you go.
We're
fighting over questions.
You spoke so much there about the kind of developing the sort of physical side of your skill set. Just looking at sort of the more recent years, and seeing you fighting at such a high level, I'm just interested in what your approach is to camp and to fights, and leading up to, the last part of this question to be, what you do at that last minute before you get the call and then you walk out. Like, what's your routine, and what do you do to prepare yourself mentally for these sorts of things?
Just for that last moment, or the whole?
I guess, yeah. I mean, if we could just focus, suppose, mainly on like, the day of the fight.
The day of the fight. The day of the fight, it's a tricky one. I've had a couple of days of the fights that didn't that started off I had a fight and then no more. So so I've been in that situation a lot this year. But I think the day of the fight, you wake up, hopefully you have a good night's rest. Usually the weight cut, you don't really sleep, so you probably pass out at like 8 p.m, wake up pretty early, and then you feel like nice and refreshed, ready to go. I like to do a shakeout, which is just like a little workout right in the morning before the nerves start building up, because for me, like a lot of times I can't eat breakfast if I'm too nervous. I can't just like relax, because I'll keep getting those butterflies, like those heart pings, like you're on a roller coaster. So if I work out real quick, just a quick little like reminder that I'm strong, I'm ready, I'm fast, my body's recovered from the weight cut, because you feel like shit when you cut weight. You're just everything you do, you're like, So it's good to have that reminder. Hey, we're back. We got water in our body, and we can hit hard again. We can sprawl hard. We're grappling really good and fast. So we do a quick workout, like maybe a 30-minute workout in the morning, and then my nerves are settled for pretty much until we leave to the arena. So I can eat, I can relax, I can hang out with my team. I might watch some highlights of my opponent's fight, or I might watch some highlights of a fighter that I really admire, and just be like, okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that to that person when I get there. And then on the way to the arena, I'll have my little playlist that I play, like my little hype playlist to keep me like, amped and feeling good and feeling confident. And then when we get there, it's kind of a blur. So you get there, you probably have to do like a drug test or something. You have to pee in a cup, and then they rush you into your dressing room. You get your hands wrapped, and that's for me, that's like that moment where I know, okay, it's about to go down, when I'm sitting in the chair, getting my hands wrapped, trying to stay relaxed, but also knowing, okay, here we go. It's about to be that time that I've been waiting for all these weeks. And I think the most intense workout of the entire fight camp is the one right before you go out. So they usually don't show it when they show like the camera of you like hitting pads. Usually you don't want to show them too much because they put it on the screen right before you walk out. But when the cameras go away, you're like hitting mean, rah, 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 like, you know, making them hear it. Like in Muay Thai, there used to just be a curtain between you and your opponent. So my coach would always be like, all right, let him hear it. And then I got just like screaming with every kick, like making sure my kicks sound really loud. So they're like, oh no, she's gonna try to do that to me. But yeah, the same energy goes does, even though we're really far away and they can't hear me. I'm still doing that. I'm still like, you know, building my confidence by just like hitting as hard as I can, imagining punching through their skull, you know. And then when you walk out, it's just that constant affirmations, like telling yourself, all right, let's go, time to run this girl over, time to fuck this bitch up, you know, like it's my time. Just, you know, just like anything to get yourself riled up. So yeah, it's like constantly just willing yourself to get in there and just be a monster. And that's me, the walk out to the cage.
And at that point, when you're walking out to the cage, how different is it, and how much of an effect does it have on that moment when there's a crowd there and when there's not?
You know, I don't really feel the difference. And I feel like when I fight again with a crowd, I might change my mind.
Yeah.
But because it was so long ago, I really don't feel that much of a difference walking out. But it does do something.
Yeah.
Like I think my last crowd fight was in New Zealand, on the Paul Felder Hooker fight.
Yeah.
And they, because it never comes to New Zealand, they were their first fight of the card. So I think I was like maybe the second or third fight, and the crowd was full. Like everyone was there. Everyone was like cheering and everything. So it was pretty cool walking out and seeing all those people, and they knew my name. They're like screaming, Angela, look at me. You know, so it is pretty cool. It is pretty cool. But personally, I feel like all that's a distraction. Like I really just want to focus on walking out and telling myself, okay, time to fuck this girl up, time to fuck this girl up. You know, like just staying focused on the task at hand and not getting too starry-eyed at like, oh, they love me, you know. So yeah, I feel like that's maybe the biggest difference. But what I do hate is after the fight, when you walk out, it's always really cool to finally like see the fans and slap their hands and everything, and they're always like, I love you, no matter what happened in the fight, win, lose, or whatever. Like they're just like, I love you, oh, great fight, oh my god. So that part is probably the part I miss about having fans in the crowd. That, and when you land something cool, they all go, oh.
Yeah.
Yes. So those are the things that I miss. But yeah, the crowd can be kind of obnoxious too. So it's like, you know, you get your good and your bad with it. But yeah, it is fun. When I heard when I was watching the fights recently, I think it was the Florida fights, and like the very first fight, it was like a strawweight fight, and like people were there. It was just like New Zealand, like, you know, everyone was there because it was the first fight with a crowd and forever, and like just hearing the crowd go, oh my god, like that made me miss having a crowd in there. So I feel like when I fight again with a crowd, I'll be like, yeah, this is the real shit. Like
I can't remember who that fight was. That first fight back on the prelims when there was a crowd, them boys that were fighting were throwing. As soon as that crowd roared, you could tell it was like a big injection. That it was like, whoa, I've not heard this for a long time, and it seemed to just absolutely lift the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it like I don't know. It's like adding sparkles to your TikTok or something. It just like makes it prettier. It makes it more cool.
We'll have people listening to this podcast that aren't fighters, but I think can, you know, take a lot of inspiration from stories of fighters, like overcoming adversity and stuff like that. And I think from looking at your career chronologically from after The Ultimate Fighter, you won your your UFC debut, then unfortunately lost 2 fights and then were cut from the UFC. And that must have been a really low moment. But then from that, you were able to pick yourself back up, win 4 fights in Invicta, including a world title, and find your way back to the UFC. And I think there's loads of people out there, when they hear stories like that, are really inspired by that. How did you do that? How do you go? Because I'm assuming that must have been pretty shit, quite frankly, to be cut. And then, but then to go, no, I'm gonna do this, go on that win streak, beat 4 women, and win a world title as well. How do you kind of get that shift in mentally, you know, to be able to propel yourself forward?
I don't know. I think I just put so much effort into it at that point. And I think being on the Ultimate Fighter, it was a good moment where I just knew, okay, you're doing the right things. You're in the right spot right now. And if you were getting your ass kicked every day and then you lost 2 fights in a row, then yeah, maybe this isn't for you. But because I was doing so well in the gym, because I knew my potential, and I had really good people behind me. My husband was coaching me at the time, and then I also had just moved out to San Diego to work with some new coaches, and everyone was telling me, hey, like, you'll get right back in there, you just need a few more wins. They understood that when you got into the UFC, you only had 1 fight. So aside from my Muay Thai career, I only had 1 MMA fight, and it was just a learning curve. Like, I had two people who were very experienced that I lost to, Tisha Torres and Rose Namajunas, and like, once I got cut, I was like, all I have to do is prove to them that I belong in there. So that's what I did. I proved to them that I belonged in there. My first fight in Invicta, that back when I was still looking at what people were saying about me, everyone assumed that I was going to get submitted, that I was going to get knocked out for some reason. People just assumed the worst. They just thought I was shit. And to be able to go into my first fight in Invicta and get a knockout win so quickly, I was just like, yeah, your fucking faces. Like, it was just such a great feeling. And eventually I stopped looking at what people are saying about me online. Like, I was actually looking for it. I'm like, Googling Angela Hill MMA latest search, and I would like look for what people were saying about me. So it was a really good feeling to just like reaffirm like all these things that I already knew about myself. Like, I already knew I belonged there. I already knew that I could knock people out, but it was just a matter of doing it. So having that first fight in Invicta and knocking the girl out, and just like really, really proving to myself, like, yeah, you're on the right path. You just got to keep striving, keep working on everything, and you'll be there. That was a big step towards me getting back into the UFC, and just believing that I could too, because a lot of fighting is confidence. You can be like the worst fighter ever. You go in against the best fighter with tons of confidence, and the best fighter has 0 confidence. The guy with confidence is going to win, because there's all this posturing. You have to like throw the hit. You can't just like second guess yourself in there. And I feel like a lot of my losses were because I was a little too cautious, because I was second guessing myself, or thinking, or worried about what happened in the past happening again, and that ended up allowing the thing to happen that I didn't want to happen, if that makes sense. So yeah, just learning how to trust in myself, and trust in my training, trust in what the people around me are telling me, like the good things, and being able to just bring that into the cage with me. So those are probably the big moments, like getting that knockout win, and just knowing, back on Tough, I was beating these girls. I was hanging with these girls. So I know with just a little more experience, I'll be beating the girls that I'm actually fighting.
What's your relationship like with social media now, Angela? Because we live in a world where, in MMA, obviously in the UK, we're seeing, you know, what one of our, you know, more I guess popular fighters, Darren Till, constantly just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at his social media, calling out anyone that, you know, he doesn't like that day. And you know, and we obviously we've seen, you know, masters like Connor using it to build the profile on that. Is it something that you use at all to build the, aside from Angela Hill, the fighter, the, you know, the brand, the you know, the marketing angle of things? Is it something, what's your relationship with it now? You touched upon some trolls and stuff like that earlier, but, you know, I just wonder how you approach the whole social media thing now.
I've been grinding on social media, but I try to get it out there, but every now and then I'll look at my husband and I'll just go, I need to post a booty pic. I'm sorry. They don't care about anything else. So yeah, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with social media, but I do think it's a really unique tool that we can use as fighters to just stay in people's minds and build your brand and all that good stuff. So it is a useful tool. I'm just still figuring out the algorithms.
Well,
I like it.
one of the best things I think I've seen on MMA social media in general really was, and I wasn't going to bring this idiot up, but you dealt with it so well. For people that don't know, Stephen A. Smith is an annoying man on ESPN that unfortunately came out of a statement along the lines of, I don't like seeing women punch each other in the face, and in a way kind of denigrating the female mixed martial arts. And a lot of female mixed martial artists came back at him, rightfully so. But you did it in the best way, because he somehow there was like a leaked him hitting pads, which was horrendous because he threw like some kind of left hook to the hip and then a terrible uppercut constantly. And you, and I think your husband Adam, is that right? You put together a parody of that video that was so funny, and I recommend anyone going out there and listening to this interview now, go on your, I think it was on your Twitter, it might have been on your Instagram as well, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I posted it on everything.
Yeah, I mean, you can find it. It's so good and so funny the way that, like, you were like, oh, but this technique hurts. And your husband was like, if it's hurting, yeah, do it more. It was just really, really funny. But it's so annoying that narrative for some idiots is still out there. And even though you do exactly the same sport, exactly the same amount of rounds as well, it's not like some people have an issue with tennis and how, like, women will do 3 sets, but the men will do 5. You can't say that about MMA. You like championship fights and main events are 5 rounds. It doesn't matter on your gender. Other fights are 3 rounds. Doesn't matter on your gender. You're doing exactly the same sport, and there's still some idiots out there. I mean, I mean, as I say, you dealt with it incredibly well, but it must annoy you to a ridiculous degree.
It annoys me because he is in such an elevated position.
Yes.
So him saying that is allowing people who thought it wasn't cool to say but wanted to say it, it's allowing them to say it now, and it just really annoys me. And you know, if that's how you feel, then that's how you feel, whatever, but like, you can just not watch it, you know, like, you don't have to go and tell female fighters that their profession makes you uncomfortable. And like, what other profession can you do that in? You know, like, what other profession gets attacked as much as like female athletes, where you're saying, I don't think it's right that you're doing that. Especially fighters. I think people are more okay with women like hitting balls than like actually like punching each other in the face or getting hurt. Anything where a woman can like get her face messed up, they're like, oh no, you know. That's the only thing she's good for, is looking good, you know. So yeah, it's definitely a backwards way of thinking, or just like an old school way of thinking. And I have family who thinks that way. I have like old uncles who think that way. Like, it's not like I'm surprised by it. It's just that I don't want to hear that on something like ESPN, where they're working so hard to bring equality to the sport and just elevate like female voices and you know, treat us like we should be treated. So yeah, I think that was the main reason. I was like, all right, we gotta make fun of this guy
Oh,
because
absolutely. And that
yeah,
comment was made, I think, only just after the Joanna Jacek Zhang Wei Li fight, which was fight of the year. So, like, what are you
exactly.
talking about, mate? It's
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
it's like he can't get past the fact that it's two women in there. Like
Yeah.
he's just so focused on that he can't see the brilliance of the fight or any other female fight that has happened that just shows like an abundance of skill and technique and just perseverance and toughness. Like he just doesn't see any of that. But he's made like dumb comments about other people's fights, like male
Mm.
fighters fights, and he's just been consistent with that. He's
Yeah.
that's his brand is I'm gonna say
Yes.
some dumb shit and everyone's gonna get mad about it. So good thing, and he's the one that posted that video.
Is
So that's
he?
the
Oh
best
my
part. He
God.
was proud of it. He was proud of
Oh my
it.
God.
It's like my old my first fight. Like, oh, I'm so proud of this thing. And then you look back at it, you're like, probably shouldn't have posted that. Yeah, so yeah, he did that to himself.
Well, along those types of lines, when we've had female fighters on the podcast, we like to try and highlight the kind of additional hurdles that they have to overcome that the male fans may not even be aware of, because MMA still feels like it still feels very male heavy in terms of its fan base. And so when we spoke to Molly McCann and Joanne Calderwood as well. And Joanne touched on something you mentioned earlier about the difficulty of finding female training partners and always having to spar with men until she moved over to Syndicate MMA. And Molly McCann actually spoke about periods and how that's not something that people consider in terms like when she gets a fight booked, she's checking the calendar immediately because she's someone that can be sick. It can affect the weight cuts. She also said a statistic of like you're 80% more likely to be injured on the first day of your period than at any other point during a training camp, which you're doing a 10-week camp, that's 3 of those weeks. That's a lot. And the male fighters will never have to deal with that, and the male fans will probably never even consider it. So are there any hurdles other than those, or do you just agree with those that male fans are probably not aware of, that you go, well, female fighters also have to contend with this on top of it? Maybe it's just idiots like Stephen A. Smith. I don't know.
Well, a lot of MMA fans are single too. They don't have girlfriends. So, so I feel like that would be good insight to some of the stuff we deal with, like the period thing and everything. I think another thing that we have to deal with is just like looking good all the time. I think
Yes.
the male fighters don't really have to worry about that.
Mm.
But there's a lot of like one thing I really respect Rose Namajunas for is she cut her hair off because she was
Yes.
sick of that pressure. She was sick of like people just going, oh, like, oh, she's so gorgeous, blah blah blah. And she's like, you know what? I'm gonna cut my hair off because it's in my way in training, and this is what I'm focused on. And to this day, people like if anyone posts a old photo of Rose, they're like, oh my God, Rose with hair. And it's just like, dude, like just like respect the fact that she doesn't want hair right now.
Yeah.
Like it's getting in her way. She doesn't want that shit. And there is a lot of pressure for female fighters to look a certain way, to post booty pics, to like get people excited about just the way that they look on top of the way that they fight. So I think that's like something that I'm not like one of those people who are like girls should never post booty pics, but I do understand like it's hard for the girls who don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like the girls who want the attention, they want people to get excited about fighting them. They want promoters to see them, but they don't want to like bend over and take a photo on Instagram. Like I feel for those girls. I know a lot. I train with a lot of them. I also train with a lot of them who don't mind. Like half
Yeah.
my friends that have OnlyFans accounts. So it's like, yeah, it's just different. It's something that male fans and male fighters don't necessarily have to go through or consider. Um, and like the period thing, I've heard about that too. I always wear extra knee pads when that time comes around, just because like I think it has something to do with like your ligaments. I forget the
Wow.
actual thing. that it is. I should read an article about it or something. But like it's easier to get like knee injuries and stuff when
Really?
that first day of your period. So I remember someone was talking about a study where like the soccer teams or football teams, as you
Football,
guys
yes,
call it.
correct.
Yeah.
Football, that is how you call it.
The female football teams, they'll actually they'll take that week off because they all sync up. Like that's the other thing. Like all the girls sync up when they're spending so much time together. And they'll take that week off and just like focus on rehab so that they don't all get knee injuries, like cutting ankles and stuff. So yeah, I definitely think that's a thing. And yeah, the training partner thing, that's why I moved out to San Diego after being on Tough. I was like, man, I need some more female training partners because these girls are a lot tougher than I thought. Like they're strong, they're fast, they know a lot on the ground. So I went to a few different places to check out the gyms and ended up landing in San Diego. And I had a bunch of teammates, a bunch of female teammates, a bunch of nice weather. So it was an easy decision for me, but it makes a huge difference. Like it really
Yeah.
does. It allows you to be confident but not overly confident. Like it's so disheartening when you learn a new move and then you try it on like the biggest guy in the gym and they just like they just like face smush you away like you're like trying to beat up your big brother or something. So when you have someone your size to pick on, then it allows you to really just open up and realize how much cool stuff you can actually do in there. So yeah, that's a big help for me, is having so many women to train with out here. And I'm trying to think what else could there be. I don't have to go through it because I was married before I started doing MMA, but finding a boyfriend is so hard, or just like just a date seems so hard for like just like women who can beat guys up. Like like could you imagine, like I don't know, unless that's like your kink or whatever, it's so hard. Like I'm always listening to my friends like dating stories, and then eventually like the guy will do something that it just sounds like they're intimidated by him, or
Yeah.
they're scared to speak their mind, or I don't know. It just seems hard. And then like at the same time, you don't really want to date someone that you can beat up either. Like you want you want
Yeah.
to date someone that like can protect you and can make you feel small and cute. So so yeah, I feel like it's really hard for female fighters to just find their guy, find a guy to go on a date with, or even like get in a long-term relationship with. So yeah, I kind of
Majority of
lucked
the
out.
time. Yeah, majority of the time you do seem to see female fighters with a coach or another
Mhm.
fighter or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, maybe we wouldn't be aware of the female fighters that are dating an accountant, but you are very aware of the ones that are dating coaches and fighters, because obviously they're all mixing and they're in the corner and all that kind of stuff. But one of the other pressures that you personally have to deal with more so than others is that you are the first, correct me if I'm wrong, African American female fighter in the UFC,
yeah.
and that can you take inspiration and motivation from that, or because you didn't ask to be the first African American female fighter, this is something that's just happened to you, and so is it a case of being able to take motivation from it, or is there sometimes an unwanted pressure on it, and are you kind of almost sometimes going, I wish people would just go, look, I'm just an American female fighter, the other thing's not as important as just me, Angela Hill, the fighter.
Yeah. It like depends on the day that you ask
Yeah.
me, to be honest. Because I do get just criticism for some reason. For saying I'm black. Like like they're like,
Really?
we know. And it's like, okay, well it's just it's a weird thing right now. Like in America is very tense at the moment. And I feel like 5 years ago, it would be more celebrated. Like, hey, first African American woman in the UFC, that's a big deal. I feel like now, after Trump era, after like all this division that's happened in the country, after all the after Black Lives Matter became like more taboo than like a good thing. um it's just like been very tense out here. And the fact that I support Black Lives Matter, the fact that I am very left wing, people are just like, "Brr," like MMA is very 50-50, if not 60-40, leaning towards the right. So
Yes.
so I do get a lot of slack if I ever do anything. If there's ever like a headline saying Angela Hill, first African American, blah, it's just like just people trolls going at it in the comments. They don't care what it is. It's just like, we know already. Quit talking about it. She thinks that the only reason she loses is because the UFC is racist, and it's stuff that I've never said. But this is like the thing that I keep seeing where I'm constantly blocking people. This is like the reason that comes up most often is because people think that I use my blackness as a reason to feel like a victim. And it's really unfair. And like I think that's the only reason some days I'm just like, man, I really wish I didn't have to worry about seeing this kind of opinion about me. And anytime someone does a piece on me about that, about being like the first African American woman in the UFC. But I do think it's like a cool accomplishment. I do think
Yeah.
the best part about it is that it it just like provides that the diversity for other girls who are watching the UFC, and they're like, why isn't there anyone in there that looks like me? And like I had that question when I started Muay Thai. I'm like, why aren't there any women that look like me doing Muay Thai? Like, this is a cool thing. I feel like I feel like there should be. And I did come across Miriam Nakamoto, who's just like this really awesome Muay Thai fighter. She's like half black, half Japanese or something. And she was just kicking ass in Muay Thai. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool. It's cool to see someone else doing like this thing that I'm so passionate about. And like a lot of times you get people who like they get passionate about something, but just because they feel like this isn't a space where they'd be welcomed, they shy away from it. So like same thing with animation. I was like, man, I feel like there's like no black animators out there. And then I found a couple and I was just like, okay, this is cool. Like, okay, this is something that it gives you just that little bit of extra motivation to try to do something that's a little out of the norm. So yeah, I think it is important to be there. I'm happy to carry the torch, and be a pioneer in that sense. And anytime I start feeling bombarded by the trolls and by the people who are uncomfortable about people acknowledging that, I'll get a message from someone saying, "Oh, my daughter looks up to you." Like I was afraid to join a gym, and then I saw you, and I was inspired. And these are like women from all different backgrounds, guys. Like it's just like people see me doing something that's kind of weird, and they're like, "Okay, I can do it too." Like I wanted to. I see this person doing it, despite like not really seeing anyone else doing it and thriving. And yeah, I'm gonna try it out too. We'll see what happens. So I'm happy that I can be that person to like give them the nudge, that extra nudge to try something. Because like the second I started doing Muay Thai, my life improved. Even if I had stayed an animator, my life would have been so much better, just because I was being active, because I was becoming more confident, and just like being comfortable in my own skin, learning how to move, like all that stuff is just like it just raises your quality of life. So if I can inspire anyone to do that, then I'm happy.
Wonderful. Um, Angela, I guess we're mindful of time with you, and so just before we sort of start to wrap things up, obviously we need to talk about right here and now. And so, obviously on May the 8th, you was meant to have fought Amanda. Didn't happen on the day, and it's rescheduled now, obviously for June the 5th, is it?
It was rescheduled,
Oh,
but yeah, I just was talking to my manager, and then apparently like she couldn't fight on June 5th because she was still having COVID symptoms that were preventing her to fight. So the fight ended up getting next. But then 2 days later, I saw a post where she's dancing and saying she's COVID free. So I'm like, like what? What are you doing? We just canceled the fight because of yes. So yeah, I'm not sure what's gonna happen with that. Like maybe we'll get rescheduled one day, but I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. And I'm hoping she doesn't book a fight against someone else because then I'd be really pissed. But for now, I'm just training. I don't have a fight at the moment.
That must be so frustrating. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine. As you say, it's postponed once, you feel like it's going to happen very soon, and then it gets postponed again. I mean, obviously the COVID situation is crazy, and everyone needs all their time to recover. We've seen a
Yeah.
bunch of incidents with Shimaev and Leon
Mhm.
Edwards and a few others that, it needs to be taken very, very seriously, even for elite athletes. I mean, we've spoken to Alexander Volkanovski recently, and he had a terrible time and ended up in hospital
Mm,
for a little while with it. But especially if you're them seeing them having a little dance, saying they're COVID free, I can't
mm.
imagine how frustrating that must be.
I'm like, you better lay down. You better
Yeah,
like,
yes.
you know.
Have your posts lying down, at least for just,
Yeah.
have some,
She could
be
do one of those things where you take the iPhone thing and tape it to your tape it to your body, stick one earpod up your nose or something, like pretend to be hurt still. Like just for me, because I'm really frustrated right now. No, it's crazy. And it happened to me earlier this year with the Ashley Yoder fight. And
Ugh.
the difference was hers was a false positive, and it wasn't her, it was her cornerman, so she just came back with a different corner. But then this time it was like Rebus and her dad, who corners her, both got COVID, and apparently she was having trouble walking, having
Wow.
like she was just like really bad. And yeah, like I get it. Like I got it when I was scheduled to fight Tisha, and that's why that fight didn't happen. I was supposed to fight her in December, and I got it the week before I flew out, and I was so upset. Um and you do get pretty sick from it, but I recovered pretty fast, luckily. It was just like maybe three bad days where I couldn't really do much of anything, but then afterwards I recovered. I didn't feel any wariness in my lungs or anything. That's like one of the scariest parts of it for an athlete, is that your lungs get messed up, and you can almost maybe never recover fully from it. So yeah, I was happy that I was good when it came to that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I was mad that I saw that post 2 days after the fight was officially canceled. So so I just sent the video to the matchmaker. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh man.
And yeah, there's, I mean, who knows what she's still going through. So we'll see what happens with that.
so where does that leave you then? Because you're obviously in peak fitness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, twiddling your
Yeah.
thumbs in peak fitness.
Yeah, it's frustrating. But one thing I was looking forward to, like taking a reset after the fight. And when the fight got postponed, then I was just thinking, okay, I just need to train a few more weeks, just 4 more weeks, and then I could take my reset. So when the fight got pushed back again, I was a little relieved. I was just like, you know what? I need to take a break. I need to rest my knees. I had too many periods, no rest days, you know. So I just need to take a break and just let my body heal a little bit, because everything about MMA is just mashing your body up, you know, like going for takedowns, punching each other, getting hit, landing on the ground in a weird position, grappling next to people who might run into you. Like, there's so many ways to get hurt in fight camp. So that's kind of why I enjoy my short notice fights, because I'm training a little more smart. Like, if I feel messed up, I won't go in. But if I'm in fight camp, I'm doing every session possible. I'm running. I'm going in even when I feel sick or injured. I'm trying to train around injuries, and it's. I don't feel like it's the smartest way to train, but at the same time, if you know you're fighting in 8 weeks, and someone else is getting ready to fight you in 8 weeks, you're training your ass off, because you don't want them to be the one that's more prepared. So I like having the short notice fights, because that little voice in my head going, go to training. I don't care. I don't care if your knees hurt, go to training. That voice is, it goes away, and I can just train when I feel good. And I end up learning more outside of camp too, because I'm not focused on one person. I'm just training to get better. And I'll learn tricks that I never would have learned if I was only preparing for Rebus for like 2 months. I'm working on other stuff to help my all around game. So yeah, it was kind of a relief, just because I could like take a step back. I could have a drink. I can just relax and just garden and play with my dog for a little bit. And then hopefully when I get back in there and I'm getting my sprints back going, I'll be able to snatch up another fight or a short notice or an actual fight camp or whatever, and I'll be fresh and mentally fresh and physically fresh and ready to go.
Oh, we can't wait to watch it. Whenever that is, we'll be cheering you on, Angela. You've been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much for giving up your time to talk to us today. It's been absolute joy.
Yeah, thank you. And all the best to Adam and the dog as well.
Yeah. I'll give them your regards.
Oh, lovely. Thanks loads, Angela.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.